Hello, everyone. Alan Schimmel, DevOps.com, and it's time for another DevOps.com webinar. Excuse me. Today's webinar is brought to us or sponsored by our friends at CollabNet, but I'm really want to make sure everyone realizes that the webinar today, Maximizing Your Enterprise DevOps Efforts and Outcomes with Value Streams, is based upon a special report co-produced by DevOps.com and CollabNet, which you can all download from DevOps.com website or from CollabNet. And it'll, we're going to talk a lot about the report today, but it shouldn't. This webinar shouldn't serve as a substitute for downloading the report yourselves. The report's free, so I'm not trying to sell you anything here, but do yourselves a favor and download the report if you can. That being said, before Eric and I jump on to things, let me first do a little housekeeping. We have set aside time, as usual, for questions today, and we're going to ask that if you can submit your questions into the question section of the webinar. We will queue them. We'll have them ready. You don't have to worry about forgetting it, and we'll get to it when we can. So please don't wait till the end to ask your questions. Type them in real time, and they're in there. Also, if you look in your chat section, we use chat if you're having any technical problems, maybe the slides aren't progressing, the audio's bad. Let us know in chat, and we do have engineers standing by who will try to help you. Also, if you look in your chat section right now, you'll see that Deb from our team was nice enough to include the link to the ebook download, so you guys can go download that even before the webinar, as we get started here. So please feel free to do that. So please help yourself. A couple of people have already asked, and it's there for you in the chat section. Okay. That being said, actually, it might have been available just to organizers and panelists. Okay, now it's available to everyone. Great. So please check that out and download it. Also, people always want to know, is this being recorded? Yes, it's being recorded. Yes, the slides and the recording will be available on DevOps.com and DevOps TV, which is our YouTube channel. Now, let us move on from there, though. So Eric Robertson, VP of Product Management and Strategy at CollabNet, has been someone I've had the pleasure of knowing now for a few years. Eric and I usually run into each other on the DevOps circuit, so to speak, the various DevOps conferences around the world. Intelligent, knowledgeable person around DevOps, and I couldn't think of a better person to do this presentation with today. Eric, welcome.
Thanks, Alan. Always a pleasure.
Yep. Yeah, that served as our sound check, Eric. You sound great. And of course, I'm Alan Schimmel, founder, editor-in-chief of DevOps.com. All right, let's move on to our next slide. And I'm going to hand things over here to Eric as we talk a little bit about some of the findings in our special report, which again was about value streams and maximizing your enterprise DevOps efforts and outcomes with value streams. Go ahead, Eric. Take it away.
Great. Thanks, Alan. I really appreciate that. Again, my name is Eric Robertson, VP of Product Management Strategy at CollabNet. I lead a product management organization in the recently merged CollabNet version 1 company. Prior to that, I was VP of Digital Transformation and DevOps at the CollabNet and led that product line as well. Before that, I was at Unisys. I led the migrating legacy systems to West-Scale architectures. I also worked with Cisco through an acquisition through Untitled Software, where I served as Director of Product Management. I led a lot of Cisco's cloud orchestration automation products. And before that, I held positions in services and also software development at companies like Microsoft, Motorola, and BMC Software. So very happy to be here, and also very excited to talk about our ebook that we jointly did with DevOps.com with Alan and his folks. And is organized by different sections, and the first section was really talking about why enterprises need value stream management. And as we know, enterprises today are really leveraging digital technologies as never before. I just saw a article read an article on the news yesterday that Amazon, with their purchase of Whole Foods, they just automated the checkout line. So it's zero wait time as far as being able to go into the grocery store and other facilities and do your checkout. And that's just a sign that's another disruption that's happening, right? So that's going to force other grocery chains to also look at how can they leverage digital technologies to move forward, because today it's a very complex and demanding environment. And you really need to have an understanding as far as what does it take from this, all the way from the planning level, the portfolio level, from a continuous delivery, and how can I optimize that, right? Because if I can optimize that, then I can start being more competitive, being able to deliver product and services to meet my customer needs, and also be competitive in the marketplace as well. And what's key here is having that visibility and understanding the value that I'm creating that's aligning to my strategic and my portfolio level. How is that being delivered downstream, right? So having complete visibility of my business applications, and not only that, but getting feedback from that end user, from that customer, and incorporating that back into my cycle is very key and very important. And this is where the speed to market and the value to customers come into play. And this ebook really examines that driving force of how value stream management and its incorporation of DevOps to offer potential big benefits for business and technology stakeholders. Alan, you says anything on that area that you want to expand on or have questions about?
Thanks, Eric. So I think it kind of speaks for itself. And, one of the nice things, Eric, is you and I have been evangelizing DevOps value streams and these things, when we were relatively out in the bushes, so to speak. Here we are in 2018, right?
Right.
And in 2018, I'm going to hope, and maybe it's a leap of faith, right, that most people are now starting, and most organizations are starting to get this, right? They're understanding the imperative for it. It's kind of DevOps or die. And they're starting to wrap their heads around how you go about doing it.
Yep.
It may not be easy. No one ever claimed it was going to be easy, right?
Exactly.
But doing things like value stream mapping, understanding why you're doing value stream mapping, having a plan on how you're going to implement it. These are the kinds of, block and tackle kind of things that we need to do if this is going to be real.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
It does. And you bring up a very good point, because first of all, you have this advent of the DevOps, right? And that itself was a change for organizations as well to adopt, right? Coming off the Agile and then moving more downstream with that. And you start seeing organizations start to adopt that with their Agile practices now. And you're also seeing that, especially with initiatives around Agile at scale, like SAFe, they're starting to incorporate DevOps and continuous delivery into those aspects as well. And so really, the first part of that was really around enterprise organizations establishing and understanding that culture and putting in the environment, not just the technology, but really putting in that environment to be able to put in place this ability to be able to do the planning, the creation, the value creation around that, and then being able to move that and start driving that down to the value delivery. And what's happening now is that because DevOps really is starting to blur the lines as far as kind of responsibilities, right? You got developers now doing some testing. You got developers now that are incorporating operations in aspects as well. So this is basically having that close alignment between the application and the business. And if you really think about it, we call it DevOps, but with the advent of value streams, is now becoming kind of what I'm calling, and other people refer to this too, this biz DevOps, right? It's no longer just limited to the technical aspects as far as what I'm doing as far as the user stories and my planning objects and my defining my features and my epics, but also defining the products and how does that really fit in with my overall portfolio and strategy. And so the key here is really having that close alignment between the business, application development, your operation folks as well. And then the next piece of that, or our next challenge that I would say that as far as adopting it was really around the tools, right? A lot of folks, they already started an organization putting these tools in place. And so they have tools around their planning, they have tools around their coding, their testing, their building, release, deploy, monitor, and operate. But having visibility and interoperability around that, to really showing how my ideation is actually being delivered across this pipeline. Now this value stream is becoming key now, and that's where the alignment of the DevOps is coming into play. Do you concur?
Yes, Eric, and a couple things. I'm letting you do the play-by-play, and I'm sort of the color commentator here. No football game though. But so Eric, you know what? It's not biz DevOps, it's dev biz ops, right? And it's sort of, you could put anything between the dev and the ops.
That's true. That is true. That is
right.
True.
You got dev HR ops, dev sales ops, dev sec ops, et cetera, et cetera. But the important thing, Eric, is that it's all DevOps, right? And so I think right, don't get too hung up on, well, is this dev or is this ops? If we're talking about just really fundamentally looking at the way you do business and how can we automate, streamline, speed up, but bring better quality and most importantly, better customer satisfaction to the entire thing. So when we talk about value streams, right, Eric? And I see you went to the next slide. Perfect.
Yep.
People often ask me, what do you mean by value stream? What exactly is it? Is it the software life cycle? No, not exactly. Right? That's not value stream. That's life cycle. Right? But when we talk about value stream, we're talking about business value and visibility, business value stream. We're looking at the end-to-end process of what an organization does, that, how it derives its value. So I think it's important. I'll let you jump in here.
No, you're exactly right. And this slide really showcases kind of where you're taking kind of the agile, and even I would even argue even the traditional way to development aspect was, right? And now you've got the version control piece, which is beyond just managing your pretty much your binaries. It's basically this notion of version control everything, right? Because everything now is becoming codified, to use that term, right? So the infrastructure as code, aligning that with how that is bringing into that value creation piece on that left-hand side that you're seeing, and then tying that in with the value delivery, right? And you go to your point exactly. It's, I heard it like some people say biz, dev, biz. It really doesn't matter. That's where you're looking at it from the value stream standpoint, because it doesn't really matter what you kind of call it in between there. It's really about how do I bring my value creation together with my value delivery, and really it's in terms around the business value, right? If I'm a CEO, my portfolio levels, I have my strategy, I have my portfolios, I have my epics. I want to understand for key customers or key delivery, when are those epics being delivered, right? Not from the context of, oh, I deployed X or I deployed Y. What does that really mean, right, to the business, right? So it's that type of visibility, that type of openness and feedback that is really driving, to your point, I think, is really now's the time that customers are starting to say, and prospects are starting to say now, hey, let me start looking at this value stream, because it's more of an extracted level view and it's more geared toward the business, which is driving a lot of the initiatives right now in the company.
Yep. Hey, Eric, you know what I'd like to do to keep it interactive and the audience involved. So one of our audience, Keith, says that this particular value stream diagram you're using looks a lot like the traditional V model that we're familiar with. What's the key difference between, let's say, the V model and value stream?
So what's different here is that we're basically, it's this continuous feedback. So you see this V here. What at the top here, you see this other arrow, right? That's pointing back into the V and is also pointing forward. So basically what we're saying is that we're now providing this continuous measurement, continuous feedback. So before, it's kind of like the traditional, oh, I deploy it, ops handle it, that's all I need to worry about, right? Now it's, I would like to understand more around how customers are utilizing this, customer feedback, metrics around how this application is performing, maybe some operational metrics, maybe it's even business type of metrics, right? Did this feature that I actually deploy, or customers actually using it? I remember working at a job, and I spent months working. I'm just for all intents and purposes, I must say I worked on this green button, right? And I was very proud of this green button. And I deployed this out, and I was sitting lunch with someone that happened to work in the sales organization. And I asked them what they did, and I told them what I did. And I said, hey, I just deployed this green button. They're like, well, that green button's nice, but we really wanted this purple button, because this purple button is really what's going to help me close more business and drive more sales, right? That would have been nice feedback to have. So
yeah.
So again, it's kind of now with the systems and interoperability, having that continuous measurement and feedback into your process not only assures that I'm delivering these products faster, higher quality, but I'm delivering the features that are necessary to drive business outcomes. Make sense?
Makes 100% sense, Eric. Carry on.
Yeah. So again, if we talk about those key business drivers, right? So organizations need to be able to, it goes to my point about measurement now, right? So not only just having that process that you model, you got to be able to measure it, right? You got to be able to have key KPIs around that to understand that what I am actually measuring is actually delivering value, right? So metrics, again, are these quantifiable measurements, right, that can help me efficiently manage the services being provided, right? And these KPIs allow us the organization to say that, hey, I'm meeting these objectives, right? And usually customers, you look at this through a reporting or a dashboard, but really it's around these understanding these KPIs around, am I delivering these products faster, higher quality? What does that really mean? What are the KPIs that actually I could show this case, right? Are these systems running efficiently? I may have delivered this application on time, faster quality, but if it causes an increase of service desk tickets by 20%, is that really good, right? So it's basically being able to correlate these measurements and around what you have and aligning it to the business objectives that are currently there as well, and making sure that the resources and folks are being allocated to these projects that are going to drive positive business outcomes overall to that. So this is what's key as far as around the key business drivers, and measurement and feedback is critical here as part of that life cycle, that pipeline. Alan?
Yeah, Eric, I don't know if I have a lot more to say on this one. I think you hit it pretty good.
Thanks. Excellent. So this is just a simple example of what I'm talking about as far as being able to measure and have dashboards. So we're seeing customers now that they're being able to have a quick insight across, let's say, their life cycle, across, let's say, their planning, their coding, their building, their testing, because tools now are becoming interoperable across these different categorizations, especially testing tools, right? I may have testing as part of a value creation process, and I may have testing as part of a value delivery offering, right? Security and compliance. It's another piece that is not a one area or one tool. It could be spread across this entire type of life cycle as well. So very quickly, you want to understand where, as a category, am I failing in certain critical tests, in compliance or security, or in operations. And I do this by having these measurements, as you see here. So, for example, I can have KPIs on average build duration, technical KPIs, successful deployments. I can have trending around that. The next steps, what I'm hearing, what people are going towards, is the AI aspects of that and the machine learning, right? I'm able to put this data into a machine learning type of system as well and start seeing trending. I could start becoming more proactive, right? So I could start being proactive to take action before something actually happens detrimental that can impact my business outcomes overall, right? So this is an example of that. Alan?
Yeah. So, so Eric, again, when we start, well, let me back up. One of the problems I think we have is we're not even sure half the time what to measure that's indicative of everything, right? We tend to measure everything. And then when we measure everything, we don't recognize that not everything is equal or everything is not equal.
Exactly.
Right? And so I think a lot of companies get lost at this step, Eric, where they want to measure everything. They measure everything they possibly can. But then, it's a target-rich environment, and they don't know how to prioritize and quantify what they're measuring. As crazy as that sounds.
No, that's
as a matter of fact, Peter from our audience, we're just knocking the questions off as they come in here. But Peter from our audience asked, are there qualitative metrics that you should focus on? And I think that gets to the heart of it. What do you think?
Yes, there are. I mean, they're quantitative. They're also qualitative type of metrics. And what we're seeing is that it also depends on the type of level as well. Like, for example, a person at let's say at the team level, right, will have different set of metrics that they're interested in seeing, right, and capturing, versus someone at the program level versus someone definitely at the portfolio level, right? So not all metrics fit all cases and all personas and all users, right? So I think it's important to have, and this is something that we have started working with customers, is start identifying just some very kind of simple type of metrics, kind of what we call out of the box metrics that kind of get started, right? And then you can start tuning it from there. And then based upon that, you can start offering different type of metrics depending on the persona at the level that you're at, right? So if you're at the team level, you got different type of quality metrics as well versus the program versus the portfolio level. That makes sense. So that's a key piece.
Hey, Eric, we have another question here from Keith in the audience, and he wanted to know what was a good way, and this may be too far in the weeds. If it is, just let us know. What is a good way to get a handle on measuring failed build and deployments with regards to non-functional requirements? A key element of the operational part of things here.
So can you repeat that again?
Sure. Let me see if I got it right. What is, because it's a long question, I apologize.
No worries.
What is a good way to get a handle on measuring failed build and deployments with regards to non-functional requirements?
Yeah, I think non-functional requirements, I think, like, for example, in that previous slide, I showed kind of the failed builds and the trending among that. I think having a time series kind of set up where you can start trending that and then start modeling that versus the non-functional versus the functional is probably where to go. But to me, I don't really see a difference as far as as long as it is a metric that you want to basically capture, and you basically put that in a time series type of lending, and then you basically set your KPIs against that based upon, let's say this is non-functional, so my alerts or my settings or my thresholds are going to be different, right? Because of this type of non-functional type of requirement that I'm setting versus a functional one. Having the flexibility to do that and set that within like a tool set, I think that becomes key. So giving you the flexibility to make the decisions on how you want to be able to track that and trend that. That makes sense. I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly or not.
Oh, fair enough. All right, why don't we move on?
Sure. So again, metrics has become very key here. And we talked about, again, the value stream and the mapping and the aspects of that are basically a lean concept, right? So really having the capability and talking about your cycle time, your efficiency, your wait time, being able to track these type of metrics as well as flow metrics are going through your value stream becomes kind of key important. And we see customers, they have identified these type of 3 metrics here, flow metrics, as being key. So that's an example of kind of out of the box that very quickly customers will start getting up to speed and start utilizing this, to start seeing this based upon practices that other customers are utilizing, right? So that's very key. So it's something where you don't want to have to kind of start with a blank slate, right? You want to have something where you have predefined content, predefined metrics, predefined kind of dashboards, where very quickly you could start in your process, you could start collecting that data, and from there you could start tuning it appropriately. So this is so having that out of the box, having these metrics kind of already kind of there as a starting point becomes key. And this is something that we see very important for customers when you start asking that question: how do I maximize my time to value with value streams? Alan?
Yep. No, I agree with you. And I think you went and answered the next question that we had on here, which was, is this the same as value stream mapping, which originated from lean manufacturing theory of constraints? Yep. Yes, it definitely comes out of that. But as long as we're talking lean and as well, Eric, I just also want to mention that instead of getting lost in the what is DevOps forest, I think it would do well for people to recognize that what DevOps is not and what DevOps is. And really so much of what we're seeing now, recently, coming into the DevOps community really comes from two areas, right? Yeah. One is agile and 2 is lean. You could take a lot of these agile concepts and a lot of lean IT type of learning, and you get a good chunk of what DevOps is there. So anyone who doesn't recognize the heritage, or the genesis of this, I think is missing the trees for the forest. No pun intended. But Eric, also some people had asked about some of the metrics on the slides. We'll make the slides available. They want to know if you can go over some of them. I don't know if we're going to have time, frankly, guys. I apologize in advance. But, Eric, we're halfway through our hour and we still have work to do. So if it's okay, exactly. let's push ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, we'll make the slides available. And again, I just wanted to basically whet the appetite. This is what we're kind of seeing in the market. These are some of the some of the key type of metrics that our customers are looking at and seeing value in, like the risk metrics here, being able to provide insight into, I'm just probably getting a little bit more technical here on like commit distribution, row commits, and code complexity and things of that nature. But the key here is bringing that information up and populating that information up, where very quickly you can start making decisions that impact business outcomes, right? And you can now start associating this with the business value upstream that you saw in the value creation part. So it's kind of taking these technical metrics and how does that map to the business value, and that's the key linkage. That's part of that as well. Yeah. So that's all I mentioned on the metric side there.
Yep.
Cool. And it's good. And I think we kind of talked about this, but really the personas is very key here, right? And because again, it's very interesting, but to your point, Alan, it's no longer even the developer now is a business person, right? Has to think like a business person, right? The tester, people were personas that traditionally you were part of, you kind of a technical aspect, but the DevOps world basically it's breaking that apart, right? You basically not only have to understand the concepts around the dev and the ops and the test and the security and all the other categories and around that, but the business aspects as well and overall. And so having that linkage there is very key there, because depending on the personas, and I kind of talked about this, right? An executive, right? They're going to want to have an understanding as far as how this all maps as far as like my features that are getting prioritized. I want this prioritized in the user stories. How is that done in relationship to my portfolio level, right? And how is that related to what is actually being delivered when I go through these code, build, test, provision, deploy, monitoring, continuous integration, continuous delivery type of phases and pipeline, right? And so they're looking at it from the standpoint of, I see these releases, I see how this is mapped to my portfolios. What does this really mean as far as how quickly I'm going to be able to compete with the Amazon Whole Foods in their checkout line? Because that's now impacting me, right? That's what they're asking, right? And the IT manager, because of the value stream, because you're mapping out the process essentially, you can now start looking at where are these bottlenecks, right? They're impeding me from delivering my features and stories out there, right? Am I delivering more defect fixes versus new value, right? I want to understand that, and that's very key to me, right? What changes do I need to make there in order to make sure that I'm delivering more value versus defects, for example, out there in the marketplace, right? And the engineer and other folks who have responsibilities around the security and testing aspects of that, they, especially regulated industries, they have a lot of checkpoints, quality gates. They want to understand that when this is being delivered and its deployment, did it pass through all the necessary quality gates and security gates, right? Why or why not, right? Was something missed here? So having visibility throughout that, and if it was missed, how does that impact the overall business overall, right? And again, I make the argument again that a developer, and I kind of use this example, they had a recent release, right, was deployed on time, but now they need to have that proactive feedback and metrics from operations, right? They need to understand how is this actually performing and delivering that value to the customer, right? If, for example, I'm getting increased service desk tickets or if I'm having performance issues, I need to know about this. And I need to very quickly be proactive and compensating for that and getting that out as an update or hot fix into that environment. And how can I streamline that? So again, because I have my value stream and I have this all process mapped out, it makes it very easy for these groups of people now to start having insight and to start be able to very quickly understand how that continuous delivery pipeline, how they could get that value very quickly through that continuous delivery pipeline. Make sense, Alan? Any other stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to re-emphasize everything you just went over, but Eric, we talk about culture and we talk about the people aspect of DevOps and lean and all of these things. Having, persona, and I've worked in companies where we had personas for our employees, we had personas for our customers, we had personas for our management team. We were personaed 7 ways from Sunday, right? What I
Yep.
think you need to remember is even the best planning and personas sometimes doesn't, reality gets in the way, and you need
Yep.
to be flexible and
Yes.
adjustable
Yes. Yes.
to a given
Yes.
situation, a given circumstance. So,
Exactly.
just don't lose sight of that. And especially if you're managing a team, right?
Exactly.
Not
And
everyone fits into that same suit, right? And thank God we don't work in those days where
exactly.
everyone's in a white shirt and a blue tie.
I remember those days, actually. I remember those days.
You
And
and
you're
me
exactly
both,
right.
brother, but we're probably the only ones on here who do.
That's true.
um,
We're probably the only ones that do. But that goes to an excellent point where the personas now are being they're being blended, right? Because now, I mean, again, back in my day, right? I just coded and sent it over, just plopped it over the fence, right? And everything was, whoever what happened downstream, that was something that wasn't really an issue. That really wasn't a concern, an area of concern. Now with teams that I'm involved with and customers I'm involved with, everyone, it's a collaborative effort, right? So everyone's wearing multiple hats, right?
yep,
So what you want to be able to do is that depending on what hat I'm in, you have the necessary data, metrics, and visibility that's important for me at that time, no matter what hat I have on,
yeah,
right?
I
And,
agree.
and,
Agree.
and value stream is really, again, I go back to it, value stream, because of the mapping, because of the process, because of the layout, because of the tool identification, because of the tying together, because of the linkage, right? That makes it a lot easier for you to deliver those type of metrics and information, no matter what persona or hat that I'm wearing. Because before, back in the old days, right, you had to build specific dashboards, and that took time for different personas. And again, you kind of said, oh, I only got these few personas, right? That doesn't work anymore. That does not work anymore. That's why you need a flexible, adaptable dashboards that have flexible, adaptable metrics and KPIs that can be suited up and delivered from the conception of a value stream. Because then that allows you to deliver what key capabilities and information that's valuable at me that impacts what decisions I need to make at that time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I totally agree.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, Eric, what do we got next?
Yeah, so this is just some examples, again, of customers that, again, what I'm calling this adaptable type of view, right? Where they laid out, they mapped out their value stream. They basically have, like in this example, different portfolio items. And because we're doing that linkage together, they're able to see very quickly in these different phases what feature capabilities are undelivered or delivered and what state is it in across these different phases within their value stream, which is very key because this is now giving them visibility, right, in relationship to value, right? So this is delivery at a glance as far as what is the state of my features, my user stories or defects. How does that map into the epics? And overall, I could drill down even further on in this case, because how does this impact overall my strategy as well, right? And when is that being delivered? So very key, combining this with metrics, this is kind of how we're aligning. Customers are aligning the value creation side of the house with the value delivery aspects. Okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
I like it, Eric.
So the last piece that was part of the ebook was really talking about the IoT aspects, which was kind of interesting because, like I said, I used to work for Cisco and I did a little bit of a stint in that area, and it was kind of interesting because the development aspects around that was very different, right? It wasn't like your traditional type of software type of development, but I could see how the value stream concepts that were talked about could be utilized in this case here, right? Because as we know, because we're talking about the highly distributed IT networks, this alone poses challenges, right? And requirements apply well beyond your traditional SDC, right? And it encompasses the complex quality assurance and really having that back-end support phase around it. And if you really look at it, I kind of talked about auditability and traceability, right? Well, this is even more critical in the IT world, right? Because as you know, all IT firm OS developments, I used to work for one, ensure that compliance assess, right? And collaboration with the hardware specialists and vendors, it's becoming the embedded systems, it's becoming more regulated now. And we work with a lot of customers that incorporate this into their overall application development environment. So having that process, having that mapped out is very crucial and very critical, right? To be able to have visibility into the development cycle, as well as kind of, in our case, having a single repository really to track these changes that follow a device rollout, right? And quality assurance is inherently complex, and it also specializes with that architecture. So, and also, right, the DevOps engineers can push these updates frequently or as slow as the approval process step, right? And so a slow approval process step does not really hold for IoT software, right? So really these aspects of being able to having this incorporated, these practices incorporated, and being able to have these updates directly pushed from the back end with a continuous delivery service model, of course, that all comes as a price, right? Because you're now empowering vulnerable devices with intelligence to perform these automated operations, right? You know, these, like for cars, opens the door. So now you start talking about security, accessibility, ability threats that move into that. So that has to all be incorporated into the way that you do the software development and also the software releases, right? So again, having the security aspect that I talked previously about in the compliance as part of that value stream and mapping that in organically is very crucial. And feedback also becomes very critical in this as well, especially ensuring around the user data privacy and the network security aspects going forward. So IoT offers its own set of challenges, as you see here, but the concept of value streams, what we talked about, also comes into play. And having the tools around that also comes into play here as well. I don't know if you wanted to add anything there to this one?
I mean, not a heck of a lot to add there, Eric, except that, you know, don't leave your value stream common sense at the IoT door, right?
Yeah.
Some things just universal. So just want to also quickly mention, because a few people have written in questions, down in the chat section, there is the link there for you guys to download the ebook in total, and you'll have it right in your hands right now. So for those who are asking, please have a look there. All right, Eric, this transitions us to kind of a next phrase. I think it's also in the question box, but now we're going to talk a little bit about CollabNet now, or no?
Yeah, definitely. I'll go ahead and talk about CollabNet at a glance and what's been going on there with us. And I go ahead and skip it to it. And as we know that we recently merged back in August 2017 with version 1. Version 1, definitely a leader in the enterprise agile and DevOps space. And they were already talking the notion of value streams, and they were doing it very closely in the aspect of safe for enterprises, and their concept around value streams and concept with the solutions and the portfolio level there, and how that all mapped in and overall to your continuous delivery pipeline. So I was very excited about that because we were talking about value stream on the traditional CollabNet side, but we were doing it from the standpoint of kind of the tooling, connecting the tools and getting data from the tooling, and then seeing how the data that you collect for the tooling, how does that impact your value stream that you mapped out through your process. So by basically version 1 bringing that strong strategy, portfolio level, that value creation on that left-hand side, us bringing in the version control aspects to be able to take those artifacts and assets, put that within a repository, be able to strengthen that out from the version control everything nomenclature, and then tying that back into the DevOps value delivery aspects, and then combining our value stream messaging together to basically, as I kind of showcase that unified value stream message, to basically giving you that business value visibility across your value stream there. And so we're headquarters now in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're off and running with this messaging, and it's going well for us. And there's a couple of validation points here on the market alignment. It's kind of interesting because, again, they were working very closely with Gartner, and we were working very closely with Forrester around our value stream messaging. And both companies basically are talking about the need to have that visibility of where their product in an application, epic feature user story, I basically talked about this, is in a delivery pipeline, right? And visibility enables better decision on prioritization investments. And that's really the key, right? And what Gartner's saying, right? You need the Agile and the DevOps to close that loop between delivery and business outcome. And so we've been working, and we have that capability and that messaging, that unified value stream messaging. So that's what's been working very well for us in the market. And what you're kind of where we talked about, Alan, in 2018, I think that's really the realization where companies are now starting to see and starting to say, you know what, I'm ready for this, right? Now I'm starting to understand that I need to move beyond just the traditional DevOps that I've been working on, and now start looking at this from a more scaling and start looking at this more holistically from a more of a business value standpoint, because that's really who's kind of been pushing and driving a lot of those decisions. And now, as I said, even your developers are becoming business folks now.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So our value stream management, basically, our platform basically supports kind of these key elements that we're talking about here, right? This interoperability with heterogeneous tooling, this single integrated unified value stream, this idea to end user traceability and audit capability we talked about. And again, I'll emphasize it 100%. These abilities, identifying these initial common metrics and KPIs and reportings, so companies can get started very quickly, right? So they're not starting from a blank slate, as I discussed earlier, right? So it's very key about how do we enable these organizations to get started down this value stream management path. Okay. Yep. Anything else, Alan, on that, or we good?
No, I think you nailed it right on the head. I think it goes directly, Eric, to the kind of things we've been talking about. And then just bigger picture, guys, this really points to the continuing maturation of the DevOps community, of the DevOps way of doing things, right? I think we're becoming more comfortable in our skins, understanding how things like value stream management and value stream mapping relate to not just the dev and ops of DevOps, but to the very reason we all go to work every day, and that's to make our businesses more successful. I hope so anyway. You hope so. So I would do that. Just a real quick question from Peter in the audience. Is there a minimum viable value stream map that has key tenets that can get companies started but won't take a full quarter to flesh out?
You know, that is an excellent question. We are actually in the process right now of working with customers and also our partners as well in identifying that. That's part of the maximizing value. How can I very quickly get value, and having exactly what Peter's just described there is key for us. So we're in the process of putting that together, and actually, you know what? That would be, once we have that, which would be fairly soon. That would be a great webinar and talk for us, Alan.
Oh, absolutely. Eric, always a pleasure having you on. If you got what to talk about, we'll have you on here. I should also mention, when I'm in my spare time, when I'm not just working on DevOps.com, I'm also co-founder of the DevOps Institute. And we actually have developed there, Eric, it's a non-certification type of class on value stream mapping.
Yes, and you're one of the partners that, yeah, and that's why I said you're one of our partners, my friend. That we're engaged. We're working with you there on that.
Yeah, so it's all good, man. It all works out well.
Exactly.
It's a small world, isn't it, Eric? All right.
It is.
What else do we have?
Yeah, so basically at the end, it just kind of hones in again, the interoperability challenge, being able to tie into the tool chain across that, and kind of bringing that into a unified value stream and association. So again, what we're talking about is not, we recognize that customers have already went down this list of tools and tooling. They maybe utilizing our tools, of course, or maybe using others, but it doesn't matter because value stream is agnostic to the tools, right? It's around the process and then mapping it in and then identifying your metrics, your KPIs, your objectives there to basically drive that across your tool chain from your planning strategic area all the way to your operational metrics as well. And that's my summary.
Excellent. That's a nice group of integrations and partners there, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, we're coming up near on top of the hour. The good news, Eric, is I've been knocking these questions down as they come in, so we don't have a real backlog. But what else do we have? Or is that really it on we got questions now?
We have questions now. Any other further questions that the folks may have?
Well, I had some in here that I didn't get to, believe it or not. So let me grab those if you don't mind.
No worries.
So Rajesh wants to know, how will a cloud platform improve DevOps objectives, not only from rapid deployment perspectives with utmost quality, but from cost optimization perspectives as well?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much is what the cloud vendors are going after, right? I mean, Amazon, you got your Microsoft, and you got your Google, right? And what's happening is that they're producing these toolings, kind of like the toolings that I showed around from the planning and all the way to the deployment. What's happening now is that they're producing these toolings, and we're actually also expanding our model into a more of a on-demand SaaS model where we're able to bring in toolings from the planning, value creation side, and also the value delivery side to basically streamline that process. Because if you have the interoperability with these tools, right, pretty much wired in, then it makes it a lot easier to map out your value stream, right? It makes it a lot easier to be able to do the association of business value downstream as well. And having a cloud platform that makes it easier to consume not only that from a development, value creation, but also from a delivery is going to be key. And implicitly, your cost is going to be captured into that as well, right? So I think definitely that the point that Rajesh brings out, I think it's beyond just I'm using container technology or I'm using serverless technology to be able to deploy. it's really the integration of that tooling and the offering and capabilities around that tooling, and how that can be extended to give me visibility into the value stream becomes critical and important and differentiated.
Great. All right, Eric, another question from Alan in our audience. When do you recommend starting the clock on cycle time? Is it when the customer makes a request or when it hits the development queue?
Wow, this has been a source of debate among our customers, and they do it. I have some that do it at different points. So it really depends on how they define it, how they see it. I'm not going to take. I mean, like I said, I've seen both ways. I mean, Alan, have you? I've seen both ways, but I don't know if it's a common standard out there that says that this is what you have to do, or this you need to start it at when you.
I haven't seen it standardized one or the other. I think the most important thing is just to be consistent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't pick what works that day better than the next day. Be consistent, and as long as you're consistent, it can be either way, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's I see it this way, so that's very good. Yep.
So Eric, I think that is about it on questions from the audience right now.
Perfect. Well, it's been a pleasure, Alan, as always.
Always a pleasure, Eric. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully, I'll see you soon up on, as I said, on the DevOps conference circuit. But until then, or another webinar or something.
Definitely.
Eric Robertson, CollabNet. Hey, man, great job as usual, Eric. Bravo. Thanks very much. Thank you very much thank you. Thanks for CollabNet for sponsoring today's webinar, as well as collaborating with us on this great ebook that I hope all of you have downloaded by now. I thought we did a good job on that, if I do say so myself. But that'll call a wrap on today's webinar. Again, thank you to everyone who attended. This is Alan Schimmel for webinars.com, for DevOps.com. Thank you. We'll see you soon on another webinar. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.